Okay, on our last notes, we talked about combined like terms, distributive property, and one-step equations. So today we're going to continue on TEKS 5A, and we're going to talk about multi-step equations. So multi-step equations just means that our equations will have multiple steps. So let's look at one example. This is going to be a two-step equation. So let me get my marker. And let me check right here. So I have our first one is going to be 8n plus 7 equals 31. This is our first example. This is a two-step equation. So two-step equations meaning we're going to take 2 steps to get our variable by itself. So our first step is to get rid of the number furthest away from the variable. So step 1. Get rid of number furthest from variable. So in this case, that's going to be the positive 7. So in order to get rid of the positive 7, we're going to have to subtract it. So minus 7, minus 7. These ones cancel, and we're left with 8n equals 31 minus 7. 24. Okay, in step 2 is getting n by itself. So in order to get rid of that 8, notice that 8 is being multiplied by n. So to do the opposite, we're going to divide by 8, and we get n is equal to 3. That's our answer. So this is a two-step equation. So let's do one more example for two-step equations. We're going to do n plus 5 divided by negative 16 equals negative 1. So remember our first step. Our first step is to get rid of the number furthest from the variable. So the one furthest from the variable this time is going to be this dividing by negative 16. So we need to do the opposite of divide, which is multiply. So we're going to multiply both sides by negative 16. These will cancel, and I'm left with negative 1 times negative 16, which is a positive 16, and n plus 5. And then our second step is to get n by itself. So to get n by itself, we need to get rid of that plus 5 by doing the opposite, which is minus 5. So we are left with n equals 11. Okay. So these were two-step equations. Now we're going to get into multi-step equations. So let's write that off to the side, multi-step equations. Multi-step just means more than two steps. So our first example here is going to be negative parentheses 1 plus 7x minus 6 parentheses negative 7 minus x equals 3. Okay. 3x. Forgot that x. Okay. So remember yesterday when we talked about the distributive property? Notice when we have parentheses, that should be our first step. So we're going to distribute everything that's outside of the parentheses. Okay, so I have negative 1 times 1, which is negative 1. Negative 1 times 7x, which is negative 7x. Then I have negative 6 times negative 7, which is a positive 42. And negative 6 times negative 1x, which is a positive 6x. Then I'm going to bring down the 3x. Okay. The other thing we learned yesterday was combining like terms, so we're going to do that next. So I have negative 7x and 6x. Then I have negative 1 and 42. Negative 1 plus 42 is 41. Negative 7x plus 6x is negative x. And then, of course, we have our 3x on the other side. So our next step is to get x by itself. But notice that on this side we have x's right here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move all my x's over to this side. So I have plus x, and I'm left with 41 is equal to 4x. So that means my last step to get x by itself would be divide by 4. And that leaves me with my answer equaling to 41 divided by 4. 41 divided by 4. Which we can approximate to 10.25. Okay. So let's do one more example. Our last example is 24a minus 22 equals negative 4, parentheses 1 minus 6a. That's our last example. So again, if we see parentheses, that means to distribute. So I'm going to take that negative 4 and distribute to these two terms. So I have negative 4 times 1, which is negative 4, and negative 4 times negative 6a, which is a positive 24a. So I'm going to bring everything else down. 24a minus 22. Remember, our goal is to get our variable by itself. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move all of my a's to this side and all of my numbers to this side. So if I'm going to move my a's over, that means I need to do the opposite of this. So the opposite of positive 24a is negative 24a, which this cancels. But notice over here, 24a minus 24a also cancels. So that means I'm left with negative 22 equals negative 4. Does this make sense? Negative 22 equals negative 4. This does not make sense. Another number can never equal another number. So this means the answer is no solution.